This episode of the Brewtally Speaking podcast is brought to you by On Point Pomade. Keep your beard and hair looking on point with their line of pomades and beard oils over at onpointpomade.com. Use our code BSP15 at checkout and get 15% off your total purchase order. So thanks again to On Point Pomade for sponsoring our show. This episode is also sponsored by the Bean Bastard Coffee. Head over to thebeanbastard.com and pick up any one of their delicious hand-roasted coffees. Coffee lovers will also enjoy their hand-cut and handmade espresso candles and soaps as well. If you're in the Buffalo, New York area, head to their store located at 448 Elmwood Avenue. And thanks again to the Bean Bastard for supporting this show. The Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. With over 500,000 officially licensed items in their online store, you're guaranteed to find something you need. Use our code BREWtally and get 10% off your total purchase order. Now on to the show.
People say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard. And you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give
up. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Brewtally Speaking podcast. I'm your host, John. This episode's guest is Issac, drummer for Kublai Kahn. This was a lot of fun. Obviously they got new music coming out, but the thing I'm most excited to bring to you is this chat where Issac and I basically at one point just start talking about home renovations, buying a house, and kind of nerding out about that a little bit. This essentially is just two dudes kind of talking about, the stresses of owning a home and just kind of, I think one of my favorite parts of it was when he ends up talking about, I was like, I started ripping up this carpet and I was doing this and then it led to doing this and then I had to redo a whole new floor and all this kind of stuff. And, us kind of almost trauma bonding over like, yeah, whenever you're starting a project, you immediately start doing like 17 other projects, and I really enjoyed that. I really hope that all of you enjoy just the mundaneness kind of everyday life. And I would honestly say after going through a pandemic where everyone started doing house repairs, house projects in general, I'm sure it's actually something very relatable to everybody where you just kind of found yourself starting all these things and maybe not finishing them or finishing them partly and getting back to them. And I feel like that's just real life. I feel like, we have the best of intentions when we start a lot of projects and then, they just kind of fall by the wayside and stare at us from the dusty shelves wherever we left them like, I'm going to get back to that, but not right now. Speaking of getting back to something, though, I can't tell you whose beer I'm drinking right now, but I will tell you I am drinking a beer that is not out yet and potentially may never be out. It is from a brewery, and what I will say is it is supposed to be kind of an orange dreamsicle marshmallow fluff kind of smoothie, and it is super thick, very carbonated. It's part of the... I guess I would kind of give away whose it is, but it's super orange. It's very thick, very kind of like if there was a lot of pulp in the drink, but no actual pulp because pulp's gross. But it's super heavy on the orange, and I don't get a ton of like vanilla or marshmallow flavor like the orange dreamsicle would kind of imply, but I do get a lot of kind of the mellow flavor, like, so the orange is kind of citrusy and bright and right up front, and then the what I think is supposed to be the marshmallow vanilla flavor of the dreamsicle part is kind of just really balancing out so much of that forward flavor. So I think that's kind of where it comes in. So it is one of those that this is a really interesting opportunity to me because I also get to leave a comment card on this beer, and I'm very excited to do that and kind of be a part of hopefully a new beer being released into the wild for other people to try and to kind of see what other people think of it. This is not something that I've really gotten to do outside of home brews from friends, but this was an opportunity that I thought was really interesting and really exciting, and very much like it was getting to talk to Isaac. Kublai Kahn made a big splash recently with a very viral moment, and instead of me spoiling that again in part of that conversation, let's just get into my conversation with Isaac, and I'll talk to you on the other side of it.
Obviously, and I love like all the drums in that. It's just like good vibes.
Is that something you kind of fuck around with at all? Like, do you create beats and samples and stuff like that?
Not samples. I love just like making beats. Sometimes I'll just like find somebody, who makes loops with no drums, and I'll just like play along to it. I've been doing that a lot lately just because I feel like I've been a little stuck creatively, and that's like a good way to just make things go, is just put on somebody else's music and force yourself to write to it. It's a good way to keep the juices flowing.
It's funny, that is one of the few things, as I sadly ventured into the world of TikTok in the last couple of days. And it's weird because my wife watched, like almost everybody, I should say. It's not just my wife or a few people, but when watching people who watch it, it's like I still really don't understand what it is. Like, I don't understand its purpose, which is weird because I'm like, what is this platform for? Although I have kind of found some interest in it, in the fact of during everything that's going on globally right now, that it seems like it's a way where you're kind of getting unfiltered news from people who are actually living through the things that are happening, and actually getting information instead of curated based on the channel you're actually watching.
Yep.
But what's been interesting is to see musicians collab, and I'm kind of starting to see it happen on Instagram a little bit more, where musicians like the Pocket Queen, I don't know if you follow her on Instagram.
I do.
She does that thing where she'll create a loop or a breakbeat or whatever, and then basically whoever wants to throw something over it can. And to me, like, I love seeing that now with social media, which is people creating together.
Yeah. I'm not really on TikTok, but like the Instagram reels and all that stuff, like it's same concept. I've found so many drummers really. I've kind of stopped using social media for social reasons, and now I just use it to watch those guys who do that kind of stuff, that like collabs, and like the drummers who just make, it's only like a 30-second video, but they're making like really cool stuff. So I've like found a lot of really cool drummers through that, and just sort of a lot of good inspiration there. So,
I mean, it's kind of funny because I feel like some people would say that at times, rock and metal drumming is kind of a very limiting thing. And I feel like this is a weird way that I kind of came to this conclusion, but it actually was going to a Warped Tour. Like, I think the second to last year they did it, and seeing 100th play right after they had stopped, basically being a metalcore band. And to see the different sounds and stuff that their drummer was able to get out of a relatively small kit,
very small,
I thought was kind of interesting. And then the more I started looking at other bands, I was like, really, it sounds massive, and it sounds like they're playing these like giant, like, Willie or Chris Adler style drum kits that are like, 30, 40 pieces.
Oh, yeah.
And it really is more, kind of going back to a minimalistic approach and just kind of honing in on what you have and making the most out of a limited amount of a limited palette, but kind of making the most of it. And I feel like actually the more I listen now to a lot of more modern metal and stuff, I feel like that's something that this era of drummers is kind of really perfected, is kind of allowing there to be space and I kind of lost my train of thought there, but just kind of that I've kind of realized.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I mean, I'm a big fan of it. I have a small kid as well. Obviously, 100th beats me out, but like one of the first guys that really impressed me with the small kit was like Matt Halpern from Periphery. Like his old stuff, he just just one tom and just a handful of cymbals, and he just gets, for being a prog band with so much going on, and he's able to fill all that space with nothing. It's really impressive. I'm big fan of the drummers who can do a lot with little.
Well, I mean, do you feel that because I often feel like, I always somehow get along really well with drummers right away. And it's one of those things where I sometimes wonder if it's just because seemingly you guys are kind of more the quiet ones, quote unquote, in the band, because not many people are like trying to talk to you. You don't have a microphone to talk in during sets and so forth. Yeah. So
I'm in the back with, surrounded by cymbals and
But I think the thing is, though, is you literally get the perspective of everything that's happening and taking it in from a completely different vantage point than anyone else. And I feel like on top of that, it kind of harkens to people watching like that I do when I work door at a bar, because it's like I'm quiet and I'm watching literally everything happen during the chaos of all this noise happening around me, but I'm kind of the eyes and ears of what's happening in the backbone of everything.
Silent observer. Yeah. No, that's definitely like that. Like, just describe me to a T. I am a lot, quieter. I love to just sort of sit in the back and observe things. And I think you're right. I think a lot of drummers that I've met, for the most part, they're of the group, they're probably a little bit on the quieter side, I would say, as opposed to like the vocalist who, he's up front. His job is to just talk to strangers all day. So
is that something that is harder for you if you're more of kind of an introvert by nature to do something that's more extroverted in tendencies?
Yeah. It's just not usually my my go-to, just because my nature, I am introverted, but I have no problem, like, obviously, doing an interview, like speaking, like not a difficult thing. It's just not usually my lane.
How has touring as much as you have really allowed you to kind of break out of that, or has it made you actually go further in?
It definitely has. One sec. My dogs are chewing something up.
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Unruly sometimes. No, it definitely has like forced me to, I don't want to say forced me to, but allowed me to just, I am a lot more comfortable. I've been doing this for my entire adult life, and the job is traveling around, meeting new people, performing on stage, which is a very extroverted thing, I would say. And just through the years, it just becomes comfortable to do all of those things. So
it's funny. I was kind of trying to find different socials of yours, because I always find that when you're not kind of on the band curated side of things and kind of get to see people for who they are, you get to kind of get a better sense of who that person is.
Yeah.
Having kind of done it recently with Steve from Wolves at the Gate, and seeing that, most of his is all his carpentry projects that he does for his actual work. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that was a thing you did, but kind of interesting to see this whole different side of your life outside of the band, and then kind of correlating it into what he does in the band life. It's been kind of interesting to see, what little bit of digging I did, and seeing like you guys went through the process in the last like 2 years or so of buying your house, you and your wife. Yep. And I'm currently going through it, and I couldn't help but think, because I think your wife made a comment or post or something about just the stresses and all this shit of buying a house. And I was like, everyone talks about it. And I was like, I mean, how hard is it? And then, like, I live here, and I've lived here for 12 years, and we're buying the house. It's not going on market or anything.
Where do you live?
Grand Rapids.
Okay.
And it was one of those things, like, it's just been so stressful. Like, we started tearing up the carpet and stuff like that just because it's been old and we've been wanting to do it. But I found a subfloor in my dining room, and I was like, shit. So then we had someone come and put in a floor, and we had the home appraiser come. And he took all the photos and he didn't say anything about anything. He was just like, "Oh, is it going to get done soon?" We're like, "Yeah, in a couple of days, like probably today, maybe." And then we get an email back that he had to come back at another $150 to take a photo with his phone.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so stupid.
It never ends. Because this is my, I lived in Oklahoma before and I had a house there, and it's a lot cheaper to live there. And so my house was a bit nicer, a bit newer. I didn't really have any problems with it. But when we moved to this house, we moved to Nashville, and the real estate market is just so crazy. I could talk about this forever. It's so crazy that like what we get here is like 2 or 3 times, what I paid in Oklahoma. And it's an old house that has been lived in by 20 people. And I spent the last year and a half I'm working on it every day. That's what I do when I'm off tours. I'm fixing up a house. And every time I start a project, I'm like, oh, I'll just redo the trim in the hallway. And then as I'm doing that, it turns into, well, I also have to patch all this drywall, and I also have to, replace this little section of flooring, and it never ends. Right now I've been redoing the hallway, and it was supposed to be, I'm just rebuilding a linen closet, and then 2 weeks later, the whole house is destroyed, and it's gone into the bathroom. So now I'm redoing the bathroom with that, and yeah, it never ends. But I don't know, it's something that I like doing, so it's not too bad for me. I also I do a little bit of carpentry, not professionally by any means, but I just like rebuilding, doing woodworking and building stuff. So it's a nice thing that I get to do off tour.
I have the intention to start one thing and then a million other things start popping up. Oh my God. Like I was cleaning out my, so when I had my friend come to finish the flooring, I was like, hey, I ripped up the rest of the carpet throughout the house. And I was like, can we have you take that away? And he goes, yeah, but you got to pay for this trailer load. Because the last one you did, came from another job and they already paid for it. So it was whatever. And I was like, oh, I got stuff. And then I cleaned out like my whole utility room down in the basement, where basically the almost 12 years of roommates just leaving shit behind. I was like, this is going, this is going, this is gone.
It all up. Yep.
And it's funny because I spent like half a day cleaning just that area, kind of figuring out where am I putting the things in my house now that are mine? Like how do I want it set up? And then it was like,
is yours.
Yeah. And then it's this crazy thing of, going through and, then it's like, oh, I got to get all these spider webs off. And then I was like, oh, I see why people have shop vacs, because you probably don't want your spiders in your main vacuum.
Yep.
But it's an interesting process to kind of go through and make something, this house has always felt like, once my, at the time, girlfriend, now wife, moved in, it started feeling like a home because we made it one.
Yeah.
But it's weird to kind of, it's an interesting concept I've been thinking of, where it's like, this has been my home, but it's going to be ours. And now we can actually make it ours more than we've been able to. Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting kind of concept of just,
like if you need like another room, or like you want to take a wall down, you can like turn the basement into a full, rental place if you wanted. Like there's infinite stuff you can do when you own the house, but it's a huge project, and it's bigger, twice as big of a project as you think it is.
Well, at least you can do stuff, and I can't. Like, that's not really my forte, is like being skilled in any trade or doing anything. It's like ripping up carpet and cleaning stuff. Like, I can do that, but it's like the actual like laying of the floor that we had. Like, I couldn't even figure that out.
Yeah,
I just had a friend. Like, I have decided I'm hiring friends to do that. If they can do everything, like I'd rather give them money.
Oh yeah. Well, if you've got friends who can do that, because I've also been dealing. I've got a detached garage, like apartment conversion that I've been redoing since we moved in, but I've been having a contractor do that, and I've had more trouble with the contractors than like the work itself, because it's been a project for almost 2 years now, and I've gone through 2 contractors. I've had probably 5 guys come quote me on it, and I just can't get people to work right now. So I'm very frustrating, but I don't know, the joys of home owning, I suppose.
Yeah, there's little things that like I made the comment because we got the laundry list of like the house inspection, and so like I was like, let's print that off, and I'll just slowly start scratching shit off that I can. One of them, when we had a random nice like 60-degree day Saturday, and so we went out and power washed the house to get off some of like the stuff off that.
Yeah,
and then it like snowed the next day, but it was like as I was talking to my friend that like kind of my utility person, I was like, you ever clean gutters? And he was like, yeah. And I go, it sucks, right? He goes, yeah. And I go, how much did you charge for that? He was like, this much. And I was like, all right. And he goes, when's the last time it was done? I go, I don't think ever since I've been here.
Yeah.
And I go, but I just know this is now my house and the roof just got done like a year and a half ago. So I probably should keep up on that as the homeowner.
You have to do all that preventative stuff. Otherwise it becomes such a nasty problem in the long run if you don't fix those little things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's almost like I feel like touring life almost is that like we're like, we'll fix that van thing down the road, and then that becomes an even worse problem for you and more costly. And it's like, should have just taken care of it then.
Well, last tour, our van was just a mess. I got a clunker to do that last tour, and it gave us all the problems throughout. And at one point, our transmission shift linkage just broke. So you could just shift it and nothing happened, but the van was on in drive, so I couldn't let my foot off the brake, and like, so I had to like have somebody hold their foot on the brake and me crawl underneath and zip tie it together, and yeah, it was bad. But
I feel like those are the things like when I forget. I think it was Bad Wolves in the Papa Roach tour. I saw like Doc and all them post about something happening with the weather. They had to like trying to find an alternate route to whatever, remaking up one date, canceling another out in like Colorado or something, I think. And it was one of those things like just to see so many people like, oh, this is horse shit and da da da. I was like, if you really only had ever like if you've ever traveled like that and just know like
nasty out there,
like so many bad things happen. And it's like, I mean, granted, these are people like driving in buses and so forth, but like, going into some of these like 15 passenger vans, or I'm sure potentially even the bandwagons, gets kind of sketchy. And some of the things that like you have to deal with where you're like I wouldn't have even thought to put zip ties around this thing.
Yeah. I'm not a mechanic, but I can usually figure out what the problem is and patch it to get to the next show. But yeah, there's just so many little things that can go wrong, and it's really expensive. And you're trying to. The only thing that matters is not missing the show. So whatever you got to do to get to that show, you just do it. And like that van last tour, like aside from that, we had like a dozen other problems. But when we were driving from I think like LA to Denver, a long drive, we got to Flagstaff and our van just died. Like the transmission coolant line broke or something. And I don't know, it's not something we can fix overnight. And so we ended up missing a show. It's the first show we've missed because of a van problem somehow in all these years. But so we had to, rent a box truck to get to the show, leave our van in Flagstaff, rent a van from another band in Denver and finish the tour. And then like after the tour, fly back and pick up the van. It was just such a disaster. And then later in the tour, our trailer broke and we just had to rent a U-Haul and leave our trailer there. So we finished the tour in like a borrowed van and a U-Haul. And in our van and trailer, we're just across the country just so we could finish the tour and make the shows. But we did it. We only missed one show through all that. So it is what it is.
I feel like it's so crazy. Like, having a lot of friends that tour and stuff like that. Like it was really funny to watch Patrick from Ice Nine, because they went and did that show in Vegas opening for Metallica. So he literally drove from like Pennsylvania all the way to Vegas and then basically played the show and then drove basically back home.
Yeah.
And it was funny to see him like, as far as I would say via a social media post, so nonchalantly be like, yeah, this tire got shredded, so whatever, I'm fixing it. And it's just like these things that so many of us freak out about. Like if it happens to us, like we would like, oh my God, like my whole day is ruined. Everything is ruined. Like this is just like, it's like the Tiger King quote, like I'm never financially going to be able to recover from this.
Yeah.
And to see like band people specifically, or like people who travel a lot, just be very like, so whatever, just, it was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I budgeted time for this problem. Like, yeah. It's a weird thing, and there's so many little things like that that can go wrong, and I'm sure most guys in bands have encountered all of them. But yeah, that's why I had to push this interview early, is I'm flying to California today to pick up a new van and drive it back to Nashville. I have a 30-hour drive to do tomorrow. So yeah, like nonchalant, like I'm just buying a van and driving it 30 hours just because that's part of the job. So
I just went to Nashville about a month ago.
it's a cool spot.
It's interesting.
Yeah, interesting is a good word for it.
It was funny because when Maddie from Memphis, because he's out in Spring Hill, he was like, "Oh, we're not that far away. Just come on out." And I'm like, "Okay." And then it was like 40 minutes, and I'm like, "Where the fuck are we going?"
That's like I feel like for this part of the country, that's like not a big deal. Like a 40-minute drive, not a big deal. Because where I grew up it's like the halfway point between Oklahoma City and Dallas. So a little town, if I wanted to do anything, I was doing an hour and a half drive to get there, to the Dallas suburbs. So
it's funny. We're kind of the same in Grand Rapids. Like the Nothing More a Chae tour just got announced yesterday, and Mark had sent me the routing, and he was like, "Hey, are you able to like come see any of the shows?" I was like, well, Detroit on a Tuesday. I was like, Chicago on a Friday. But and then I was like looking at the Indianapolis date because I was like tentatively between like Fort Wayne, Detroit, and Chicago. They're all about 2.5 hours. So like if you're not here, I'm looking at the same drive regardless.
Yeah, like you can go to any of them. Yeah.
But typically I often, and everyone always goes, "Why do you and your wife go to so many shows in Fort Wayne?" I go, because A, it's cheaper, and B, unlike having, like, this sounds so shitty to say it like this, I don't have to share as much time with other people who are there that are guests, because most people don't know anyone in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But I mean, I do like Fort Wayne. I don't know if you've gotten to play Pierre's or.
I think we've been there at some point. I have no memory for shows and venues and stuff. I just kind of go and show up and play. So I can't remember Fort Wayne. I know we've played there before.
It's an interesting city, town, whatever. It's nice. Like, I enjoy going there, but it is one of those where you get a lot of looks like, "Why are you going to Fort Wayne so much?" Actually, that's what wife and I are going there next weekend. We're going to spend the weekend there to see the All That Remains tour, and then stay a couple of days, and then go to the Beartooth era show.
Cool. Yeah.
Do you still go and enjoy going to shows? I feel like that's a weird thing that I haven't really talked about too much with this, but I know a lot of band people don't like going to shows.
I feel like I never went to shows, weirdly enough. Like,
even before being in a touring band?
Well, yeah, because I mean, I've been playing shows since I was 13 or 14, and so if I wasn't playing a show, I was practicing or writing. I never really had time to go to shows. I went to a handful, but now especially, like, I live at a venue, so in my free time, it's not really it's not always where I want to be. Whenever there's like shows in Nashville and it's all like, all the friends are coming through, I'll definitely go to hang out, but not even for the show aspect of it. It's very rare that I want to watch a band live.
It would be kind of interesting because I feel like, and actually, I guess this is kind of a twofold question. It would seem like you would it would be interesting to live in Nashville and just see the level of musicianship that's there nightly everywhere. But I know, like, because we kept going back to the Kid Rock bar because it was the one bar's vibe we kind of dug. But it was one of those things, like, I remember someone saying, like, "Oh, that's so-and-so's drummer," like, during one of the later bands that we went to. Is that something that would interest you to just kind of get out of what you do with, Kublai Kahn and stuff like that? Is just, like, "Hey, I'm going to, like, randomly sit in with this band and we're going to do covers and play, on the strip or whatever, and just kind of flex a different muscle, drumming wise?"
I think that'd be great because, like, in the end, it's still, I still just get to play drums, which is the good part of this. Like, I just love playing drums and being a drummer, and so any outlet for that, I think, is a good one. I would definitely love to do that. I haven't even looked into it or started to, but I feel like it's been on my mind more and more lately because I have a lot of friends who have been doing more of that. A lot of friends from, like, our scene, like the metal hardcore scene, who have been playing with, like, country artists or, like, hip hop artists. They've been branching out and doing other jobs, And I think that's a really cool thing that I definitely am interested in, because when I'm off tour, I don't work. You know, I keep myself busy, but I don't have any like real responsibilities, I want to say. So
Yeah.
sorry if my dogs are loud.
No, you're good. I have one that usually barks at some point at nothing
Yeah.
that you'll hear in the background. But no, I mean, that was kind of the interesting thing to me, like going to literally, all the bars and just bar hopping. But like,
It's
in
crazy
such
down there on Broadway, because every door you look into, there's 3 bands playing. There's a band on every floor, and they're all, good musicians just playing covers. It's crazy how many people here, how much live music there is.
It kind of reminded me in sorts of like, oh man, I just lost my train of thought with it. But I was gonna say it was just so weird because it felt like it was like a little bit of an overload of just like, oh my god, there's so many bands and there's so much happening. But it kind of reminded me, and like I said, again, this is something I've talked about on the show quite a bit, but like I was so blown away going to Warped Tour that one year, where like having a couple of friends on the tour had like the all access pass, so I could see just the inner workings of the tour, like going to one of those main stages and seeing, or I'm sorry, like one of those stages that split in half, like one of those side stages, and just literally seeing how the teardown happens on one, the sound check's already happening, so as soon as you're done, this band's going, this one's getting torn down, and the sound check and setup and all that shit, so in 25-30 minutes, like here you go, and then everyone's loading the trailer. Like I was just like, this is so fucking, like, if people could see this, like I think like it was so fascinating to me to just see how well of an oiled machine it was, and it's like the best of the touring industry, basically.
Oh yeah, Warped Tour was great because we did 2018, and we were on the Monster stage, which is like that. And yeah, the crews who run the stage are just, they've been doing, they're the same guys every year on the stage. Yeah. They just work so well together. And then we become part of the crew. Like we help unload the truck in the morning, and like after our set, we immediately pack down and pack our gear in the truck. So yeah, like you become part of that process. And it really is like working like a job. Like it's so, like they want everything on time. They want everything in order, like really clean and organized. And it's what keeps it going so smoothly, because there's no problems. And if there is, they fix it right away and just keep moving. It's really, really cool.
But that's how I felt going to Nashville and seeing all the bands, like the setup, teardown between the 3 different levels. It was like, crazy. This feels like Warped Tour if it were to take over like a strip of road,
one street. Yeah.
Like that's what it felt like to me. And just again to see the bands, like there was a couple bands I saw where I was like, you're kind of good. I'm surprised you're playing so early in the day. But then I would see like when we go back like at night, and you'd see the bigger, quote unquote, bigger bands. You're like, oh, you got same like when you see like a local band on a package tour. You're like, oh, I see what separates the level of thing, and it's kind of this full package thing of like the band sounds a little tighter, they have a little bit more of stage presence, they have a little bit of banter, they're making it a show, not just like here's a collections of songs and me talking. And to me it was one of those where to see that and knowing that literally there's no difference in pay because everyone's playing for tips, as far as I know. I don't think that quote unquote headliners get paid, but it was one of those where I was like, that to me was really interesting to see, and to kind of see people not really have an ego about it. Again, kind of reminded me of Warped Tour, where it's like I play what I do, and I'm just thankful to be playing and be here.
It's the same thing as all the touring bands. Like you start out small, opening, the top floor stage or whatever, and you're trying to get better and make friends on the strip and work your way to that night slot on the main stage. Like I imagine it's the exact same thing as the touring bands. You're just trying to work your way up and get fans and notoriety so that you can play the bigger, better show.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I saw, I forget what the name of the venue is, but like what caught my eye was Beartooth's playing this room, and I was like, really? Because like I didn't think that like some of those venues like would allow like had actual shows. Yeah. So and I kind of like popped my head into the venue part of it when someone else is playing, like a trio was playing, and I was like looking around, going like, huh.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a friend that lives there, and she was like, "Yeah, it's going to be one of the first rock shows. They booked a couple of other ones, but I think it's gonna be a kind of wait and see. Like, let's see what happens when we have some of these kind of bands come in, and we'll see if we want to keep booking it." So I'm kind of interested to see if it becomes a new spot for bands to go through.
It's a very different world, but I feel like Beartooth specifically is kind of, they're bridging that gap between, you know, sort of a more mainstream world and what the rest of us are doing. It's really nice. It's very, I want to say, helpful for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, as I get older, I think that's kind of the weird thing for me at times is, and I'm starting to see it a little bit more now, where I feel like we're kind of getting away from the same bands, like the same 5 sounding bands on every tour. And Beartooth, I think, is a great example of kind of going back to that old school mixed bill kind of lineup, like thinking back to when they took out Every Time I Die and Old Wounds.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have, cool. And not the same kind of vibe between any of the bands, but there's a little bit of continuity. But I feel like that's kind of a thing I'm noticing back in kind of, the underground, like hardcore metal scene. It seems like because you got bands like, Code Orange and Knock Loose and Turnstile and all those bands that have kind of gone in separate areas of the genre, quote unquote, that it's allowing ancillary other genres to start popping in. And now you're getting mixed bills, and you're kind of getting kids, I guess, that want to see it versus that weird, I don't know if it was booking agents or bands or whatever that was like, we're going out with like all the same 5 of us that sound exactly the same.
I don't know. I think it just, at the time, it's what was working, or it was who was available, or I don't know. But for some reason, there's just a lot more attention drawn to this genre lately. Like Turnstile being on Jimmy Kimmel, that's a huge thing for them, but the genre as a whole, there's a lot of people who don't even know that there's this entire world of, underground, but hopefully they're helping break the whole genre above ground. That's sort of one thing I'm hoping. And like all those bands you listed, like Knock Loose and Beartooth, like they're all helping do that, just because they're at the top of the food chain for that. And I don't know, it's a good thing for everybody. I think it's awesome.
Kind of speaking, and I'll preface it by saying this, I feel like what's been interesting in the last year or so, actually, I'll trim it down even more. In this past year, we've seen a lot of quote unquote viral moments in stream music, with To the Hellfire by Lorna Shore specifically, blowing up on TikTok and all that. And then, the music curator for the Red Wings, playing Black Dahlia and playing, actually I think Lorna Shore again. We're kind of starting to see these weird avenues for an extreme, quote unquote, extreme music to break into the mainstream.
Yeah.
You guys had a moment there a few months ago. I mean, reading through everything, like just literally like having seen the video myself, I was like, I'm pretty sure out of these 2, I probably know who was the one playing the music and kind of doing that. But I mean, because I've not had someone on to kind of talk about having a viral moment like that. What is it like for you to kind of go from quote unquote mainstream obscurity to then all of a sudden getting all this mainstream attention?
It's a weird thing, because it's interesting. Like, it's kind of it's just a fun day of like, like this happened. Like, this is weird. Like, I've, seen her movies since I was a kid, and now like she's posting videos listening to my band. Like, that's kind of weird. But I mean, I feel like that's kind of where it ends. Like, after that, it's just like, that was kind of a funny thing that happened. And then you just go on about your day. I go back to playing a 200 cap room in Nashville. I don't know. Like, so
it just makes me wonder, in the day and age of presumably a lot of businesses and a lot of things trying to make a viral moment happen unorganically, which is the irony of it. If something like that happens, and then maybe it starts, to use kind of a wrestling term, to kind of make them see that there needs to be a push all of a sudden, like things get ramped up a little bit faster, where it's like, hey, maybe we were looking at dropping that leadoff single, a month before. Let's take advantage of this momentum we got, and then let's kind of do things a little bit differently. Like, I didn't know if maybe something like that kind of was happening behind the scenes.
I think it's all. I think a lot of it is about timing. Because, like, for example, the Lorna Shore thing, like, they dropped that album, the song like blew up. That, you know, that moment blew up on TikTok. They had a huge viral moment. It was also right when they were like about to do that headlining tour, and they got so much. They popped off so much from all that, and that just helps the push. And they were overselling all the rooms that they were playing on this tour. You know, and because of that success, in that sort of little bit of like notoriety or viral moment or whatever you want to call it, they're, you know, getting huge offers from that with bands that you wouldn't expect. And that's like, that's awesome. That's what you hope to happen from these moments. I don't want to say ours wasn't quite like that, but we had just gotten off a tour. We're sort of in like the valley of our, what's happening with us right now. So wasn't like nothing crazy comes out of it other than a few eyes that you wouldn't normally get, but that's still something. That's still what we're all looking for, you know, just something to help us grow a little bit more.
It's I feel like that was kind of the interesting thing, thinking about it from more of a, from your guys' perspective, and then the business side of things is like, okay, like, so if something like this happens, does it really not derail, but kind of just completely take and change what you're looking at doing, because you're trying to capitalize on this free momentum that all of a sudden you're getting. And I think it can. I think for us, we're really a like nose to the ground kind of band. We, you know, we're not an online band. Like that's why it was so surprising to see you guys be mentioned. I was like, really?
Yeah, we're not a social media band. We're not a viral capture the moment kind of band. We just kind of do our thing, and the slow and steady race, I guess. I don't know if that's by choice or that's just who we are as, you know, people, and therefore what our band has become. But so yeah, I think maybe we're the wrong target for the viral strategy, but I don't know.
I find that kind of interesting. And it was, like I said, when I saw it, I was like, huh. Because, like, not that, like, I don't assume people listen to you, but it is one of those, it's like, if it was kind of any other band, like, you know, it kind of makes sense, you know, like Lorna Shore, at least, like, you know, I know Josh Schroeder that produced it, like, and he kind of doesn't live on the internet, but like things like that, he's kind of good at,
like right on top of.
He's good at doing things that, like, if people hear it or something happens, like, you're like, oh shit, like, you know, the stuff he's done with King 810, whether you like that band or not, like, it's something that people pay attention to when it drops, because it's so different. Like, he always has kind of a pulse for doing something different than what you would expect. And, you know, to see, you know, when that song came out and that part specifically just started blowing up, it's like everyone had the same reaction, but it's like, it's funny because it's like, I know him, he probably was just like, yeah, this is fucking sick, this is gonna blow people's minds. And then it probably wasn't much beyond that to him, but then to just see him, you know, when people are like, oh well, the mix is terrible, or da 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 da, and like, he just, like, he takes what he does seriously, but everything else he does not. And he fucking feeds into it and isn't afraid of feeding trolls and trolling them back and all that, because he just, I mean, it's not real. It's not tangentially real.
None of the internet stuff is, I want to say it's not tangible like that. Yeah, like they can say whatever they want, but it's just on the internet. It's different when you're in person. What people will say to him about his mix. So
kind of speaking to the band a little bit more, because sometimes people get mad that I don't really talk about the new record or new album or anything, which I find these to be more fun because of that. You know, something that I was kind of going through, you know, looking at the EP and kind of listening to the songs and kind of going back and listening to the music, you know, something that I feel personally separates the band from a lot of your contemporaries is just a lot of the real shit you guys, you know, talk about lyrically, with the music. And it kind of makes me wonder, is it tough sometimes, and maybe this isn't a you question because maybe you don't feel as much of this as others, but, you know, is it something where sometimes the weight of your lyrical content gets hard to kind of discuss day in and day out while you're on tour?
Yeah, not like you said, not really for me, especially because, you know, like we talked about, I'm in the back, I'm the drummer, like I'm not the one people want to talk to. But for Matt, I know it definitely does, because he speaks to a lot of deep topics that a lot of people can relate to in their own way. And people at shows, they love to talk to Matt about their personal, stories and how he relates to them. And so traveling around the country doing a tour and hearing all these people's personal trauma, it can, it can get really heavy. And I think there are times where Matt's got to just sort of take a step back and just sort of like, some days he's just like, I don't feel like talking to people today. I just don't want to do it today. And that's, we just have to be like, yeah, that's fine. Like, do your thing. Cause yeah, I know that can get heavy, just hearing just a stranger's life worth of trauma that they've endured, just because that's Matt's lyrical spot. That's what he talks about in his lyrics. So he gets a lot of that from people at shows. And yeah, I think it is really heavy a lot of times for him.
Over the years, obviously working with him and being in the band and so forth, when you guys are recording, I'll say probably more in the pre-pro stage when you're probably first hearing these lyrics and stuff. Do you actually kind of go in and listen to, or like read what he's like writing, or listen to what he's saying, and kind of like, maybe not taken aback, but like kind of like, wow, like crazy.
When he first sort of does the unveiling, I always get that little bit of like, oh dang, like this is where you're going this time. And it's always fun for me to hear it for the first time, because I think Matt's great. He's a great lyricist. He's a great vocalist. And so, yeah, it's fun that I get to hear it first, but it's he's always got something shocking that he does, every album. But yeah, that it really is. We just kind of let him do his thing. Eric, our bass player, usually when we're tracking, they're two in the room because they're the two who do vocals, and Eric is really helpful with sort of phrasing and like fixing things. It's them two and Randy through the whole vocal process, and me and Nolan are working on, the songs, the structure, the riffs, we're the logistical side of the album, and they're the lyrical, sort of flourish on top. That's their spot, which is also kind of nice. That's something that I like about how we operate, is we really are four individuals that work together. We're not a band where one person writes everything and then I come in and track whatever he wrote. Like, we all write our own stuff and we work on our own parts separate, and what the end product is just whatever it is. And I think it's kind of fun, because by the end of it, I don't know what's coming out. I just do what I think is going to be best for the song and the drums, and that's my piece of it.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think that's it. The interesting thing about your band is, I feel like, to me, there always seems to be this I don't want to say, like, I guess it's integrity or an authenticity. Like, there's just, it feels uncompromised, I guess is the word I'm looking for. It doesn't feel like somebody is coming in and telling you what to do. It feels like it's you doing what you want to do. And I feel like, there are other bands that maybe put out a lot more material.
Yeah.
But I feel like you guys have the quality over quantity thing, where I feel like you don't put anything out that isn't of a certain level and that you don't feel 100% by all of it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Writing's definitely it's a difficult thing. And I want to say it's hard for us because we don't live in the same cities. We don't live in the same states. We're 4 separate states. And lately we've all been moving around the country. So writing is kind of it's a difficult spot for us, but when we do finally come together, especially with Randy, our producer, it's just very, very smooth and fluid, because we haven't had thank God we haven't had a member change in 7 or 8 years, I think now. And I think that's a big key of it, is we're just all growing together, and we're a well-oiled machine by this point.
Do you feel that potentially by you all living in different areas, different states and all that when you finally start writing together collectively, that you understand, like, you don't have much time and you have to make the most of it, so you all come prepared and are ready to work?
Oh, for sure. And being that, like, we have a good studio experience, it's such a, like, welcoming creative space that when we're there, like we have a hard time writing like at one of our house. There's so many distractions and stuff, and so I think it's really nice. It's like going to your office to work. Like there's something different about going to a place with a purpose than just doing it in your free time. Like if we're going to the studio, we're there to work, we're there to write, and all four of us know that, and so we do get a lot more done that way. And also it's nice being able to play drums 24 hours a day. If I want to wake up in the middle of the night and go write something, I can. I get that option. I can't do that at home. So
yeah, that a friend of mine left his drum kit, and I was kind of fooling around on it, and then I've been like, I was talking to, because Andrew from Ghost Inside has an electronic kit, and I was like, how do you have like such great sounding sounds coming out of that thing? And he goes, oh, you got plugins now, kind of like Kempers. They have Kempers for or the profiles and plugins for the electronic kits, and I was like, oh. So like maybe I want to invest in one of those. My wife's like, you have those drums downstairs, and I was like, yeah, but like you don't want to hear that.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear a drummer practicing. It's the worst, the worst thing. Yeah.
And I go, so it's one of those where I was like, at least you would just hear kind of like this thud.
Yeah,
thud.
little. Yeah, yeah, it's a lot. I had an electric kit for a while, and I tried. I just couldn't. I couldn't do it. I just love an acoustic drum, because you can get so many sounds out of one drum. Every time you hit it, it's going to sound different, and you lose that with an electric kit. I know you can emulate it a lot better now, but it's always going to feel different. And it's just not for me. I tried, but yeah, so I've got a little kit here that this house is so small. It's up in my attic, and it's a pull down ladder, and I can't fit my kick drum up there, so I had to buy a little bop kit. I have a little 18-inch kick just because it's all I can fit up there. And so yeah, and I'm in a neighborhood still, so I try not to play when it's too late. And yeah, it's very limiting. I picked the wrong instrument for sure. But
do you tend to find that programs like Good Drums and stuff like that has allowed you to write faster?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because that's sort of how we do it in the studio. We'll write the song, and me and Nolan will like do a demo scratch version we'll just play through the song the best we can, record it, make a click track to that live recording, and then we'll go back through and replace the acoustic drums with program drums. It takes like, to program a song just off what I played takes like 15 minutes or so for Randy to do. And then from there, it's really easy to change the song, because you can alter the song without having to retrack all the drums. So if we want to double a part or like move, a chorus to a separate part of the song, you just copy and paste it, or like add the drums. And it saves so much time when we're in the studio, and it allows us to just do a lot more creatively. And then also, like, it allows me a lot more time to refine my parts, because I can go just take that recording and just like practice whatever I want over it and rewrite the drums and do anything I want, and then take it back to Randy and say, hey, like, I want to change this drum beat to this drum beat, and in 30 seconds it's done.
Yeah.
And through that, we have a sort of living version of the song that Matt can write to, that Eric can write to, that we can all work with. And as we change our parts, the song changes with it, and we can all listen to the updated version. It's really, really helpful for what we do.
It's so crazy to see how far that's come, and a lot of people, look at it as cheating. And to me, it's like, I feel like when I hear stories like yours, the one you just said, I'm like, studios aren't like bands. I mean, bands don't make money, records don't sell, so now everything has to be done as efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
And to me, like, you're saying like, oh, like, I can't tell you how many old band, making of records I watched where, someone can't get this part right, or someone isn't getting this. So they like, famously Chimera, they were so like regimented in their practice and pre-pro. And I remember at one point Rob, their guitar player, is yelling at Andals, their drummer. He's like, "You need to fucking do this thing." And he's like, "Well, I don't see why I'm doing it." He goes, "Because like you're setting this up because it's setting up this thing I'm doing. So when you hit this choke, like it's hitting this note, and like if you're not doing that, then it's not the part doesn't work the way I fucking wrote it." And I'm like, "Oh," and then to me, but to me, if they had that software to do something like that, now you're not getting into an argument because you're like, "Cool, fuck it, I don't care, change it," because I'm not having to do it.
It just saves so much time, and like studio time is the cost of making an album is every day in the studio costs money. And so to be able to save all that time, if I say, "Hey Randy, like what do you think about this drum beat over the part?" He's just like, "Let's try it." Just programs it just so we can hear what it would feel like.
Yeah.
The finished version is still going to be live drums. It's still going to be me playing. You're going to get that, that room feel of a live kit. But just for the creation process, it's just so much smoother to be able to work through it that way. But
yeah, it's crazy to see how far a lot of this stuff has come, and makes me realize that I am like the least tech savvy person ever.
I'd let somebody else do it. It's not for me, but
kind of been wrapping up. I know you guys are getting ready to go out with Knock Loose on this not Tear from the Red. Sorry, I've been listening to a lot of Poison the Well. Their upcoming album cycle or EP cycle for the EP they put out. I know you guys have played some shows because you just got done with that Acacia Strain run. How has it been for you to kind of get back into the quote unquote new normal of touring?
Awesome. It's just it's our spot. We do so well on tour. We're just like we're good at touring. Us four are good at touring. We don't bring crew. We do everything ourselves. We don't really have any issues. We don't bicker. We're all friends, and so us being on tour together is really where we belong. And so to get back to that is just it's awesome. And shows have been better. I want to say they're better now than they were 2 years ago, just because I think having that space away from it, everybody, going to the shows, the bands, the people working the shows, the venue staff, everybody's just happy to be back. So everyone's in a good mood. Like the shows are great because everyone's just so glad that it's back. And so it's been awesome. I'm just excited to keep doing more of it. And that tour is going to be crazy. I think it's some of the biggest venues we've ever played. So that's going to be fun. It's always fun playing on a huge stage, but
yeah, some of the rooms, because you're coming back through here in GR, which I'm very excited to see both you guys. Because I actually went to the Issac Christmas show, so I got to see you guys there, and it's always interesting going to that because I don't know that everyone likes every band. So like no one leaves because you kind of can't.
I feel like that's what's so nice about their show is it's still just a normal show. It's not a festival where there's 30 bands. There's still only like 5 or 6 bands. It's like a normal show. And so you might as well watch everybody. And it's a weird lineup, a super weird lineup. But I don't know. It's fun. Like I love the Bronx. I love Mariachi El Bronx. It's cool to play with them, so.
Same with Dirty Nil. I don't know. I think they were on the second night, so you may not have been there.
No, I didn't. That was a messy few days for us because we were still on the Acacia Strain tour, and we drove overnight to Buffalo to shoot some video stuff. The next day was that Every Time I Die show, and then the next day was a show back with Acacia Strain. So we didn't get to stay for the second day. So yeah, I missed all the all those bands.
What you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I just want to know from my I'll say this from my perspective, and I can say this now because I have people that I know that are kind of close with that group. Yeah. So I had known shortly after the show that they played here in Grand Rapids and the show cancellations and all that, I kind of had already gotten the heads up, it's probably not they're done.
Things aren't looking good. Yeah.
So when I went to that show, I kind of went into it going I don't know how this is going to be. I got to see what I think is the best, the show in a small room. I don't know if you played Pyramid Scheme here in GR, but a nice 420 cap room, no barricade, no nothing. And it was their second show, technically their third after the Ghost Inside show. But it was their third show back and second on the tour. So it was real great. I went into the Buffalo shows going like, I don't know how this is going to be, so I'm really looking at that one as my last good memory. But I'm going to kind of have the memories of seeing some of these other bands and seeing friends that are on the 2 dates. Did it feel weird to you? Because the vibe in the room to me throughout the whole show, both shows actually, there was this kind of this weird air of what's happening. And it felt like as each band kept going and Every Time I Die was progressively getting closer to playing, it was a lot of what are we going to get? Are they going to play? Like,
is there going to be a fight on stage? Who knows? Like, I agree with you there, because obviously before the show there was some public tension, and then also through the grapevine there was more tension. So I think everybody was kind of wondering what was going to happen. We didn't know what was going to happen. We were there all watching, and they played the show, no problems. So
the first 5 or 6 songs was weird.
Yeah, I mean they're
like I don't know if anyone noticed that, but like
knowing their around. It's easy to see when you know what you're looking for, but I think just if you're just in the crowd watching, I think it's just still a good Every Time I Die show. And so
it was one of the better sounding ones I'd seen in a long time, but it was still one of those things where I was like, the band's not moving around or interacting as much, and it took about 5, 6, 7 songs to get to a normal feeling.
Yeah.
So
I can't believe their show anyway. Like, aside from all this, they play like 30 songs without stopping. And they're all fast and like loud. Like, they just go and they don't stop till they're done. It's crazy. Like, they put on such a crazy show.
I mean, it's almost a metaphor for how the band probably ran itself into the ground.
Yeah. It's a hard thing though, because it's not just, if one person's having problems or two or the whole band, whatever. I don't want to say anything that they haven't already said, but the whole band it's their livelihood. There's a manager involved, there's a label, there's agents, like there's a whole team of people involved in this project. And so everybody is trying to work around the problems to keep things moving. And it just sucks to be able for it to derail so quickly off, I don't want to say one person, one or, a couple people can just sort of destroy an entire thing. It sucks for everybody. It sucks for all the fans. It sucks for everybody working for the band. Like, it's gone now. And it's just sort of a decision that one person can make to end it all. And it's sad, but
it's weird. And I don't know if this is my age speaking or just that I've thought about it more, but it was weird because when a lot of this started happening, to me, I feel like and wonder if there had been more fights publicly, I guess, more or less over the years, if it wouldn't have come to a head. Because sometimes I feel like, I'll use like my marriage and relationships I have. Mm-hmm. I'm really good at like saying something bothers me, like kind of right away, because I don't want to. Because all it's going to do if I don't is that I'm going to like wallow in it, and then I'm going to like it's going to manifest into something way bigger. Yeah. And then I'm going to like whenever that thing blows, I'm going to bring
a big problem
things on top of whatever the other thing is that's now the problem.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if you kind of address these things as they're happening, I feel like it doesn't create that big blow up moment. And so that was the weird thing about that band is I always felt like you never heard of anything being wrong with that band until it was, and then it was so fucking big and massive that it basically swallowed them whole.
But that's a hard thing, because as like an entity in media, you have an appearance that you have to keep up. You don't want people to know that there are problems, until it's too big of a problem. Like, you don't want people in your business. Like, I understand what you're saying. It definitely helps work through issues when there are issues if you work on them slowly, but you can't cause a scene every time there's a problem, because then that itself is a problem. Right. If your band every month is fighting on the internet amongst themselves, like people aren't people don't want that. Like,
No.
I mean, maybe for certain bands it works, but like for me, like we don't want that. Yeah, we just want to play the show, and if we have an issue, we'll try and resolve it how we can, so that the fans or anybody working for us like doesn't have to deal with it, because it's not their problem. But it's a difficult thing. It seems like they've been having problems for a long time, though.
Ironically, I always feel like that's where the best art comes from. I was reminded, when I think something Keith said, he was like, "Oh, we should have ended in 2014," and then I think about the records that came out afterward, and I'm like,
great. Yeah.
"Wow, okay." And then it's like, being a Kanye fan, I just watched him say something about how he hates My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy because he feels like it's an apology record, and I go, but that's literally actually something I said to my wife when we were watching the video he made, like that 45-minute video he made for it, and I go, I know he was wild as fuck for the last like year and a half, like the Taylor Swift thing and all this other shit. I go, but if this is what we get out of it as a byproduct, like that's what the truly, I think, genius musicians are able to do, is take that the things that they've gone through, the mistakes they've made, the life experiences they've gained, they're able to harness it and focus it into this creative outlet that just makes for what I think is timeless music that and resonates with so many people that are able to hear it.
Yeah. It's just a weird thing, because like it's gonna destroy them, like living through that like can just drive you crazy. Yeah, like as we've seen hundreds of times with so many artists. But yeah, you're right. Like that's where a lot of really good creativity can come out of that, because you're not thinking like everybody else, and that's what creativity is. So I don't know. It's not something you can balance, because if you can balance it, you're not fully diving into either side. Like I feel like it's gotta be like a genuine thing.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's actually probably a good place to end. I know you got to catch your flight and probably pack up and do all that stuff.
Yeah, I gotta go soon.
Where can everyone find you, or anything you would like to plug online?
I'm really not online. Like I said, I kind of don't use socials for personal stuff anymore. I just follow a bunch of drum accounts to get me inspired. Just the band. We got a new album coming out, and hopefully everybody enjoys it. If not, whatever. Like,
we'll have another one. Maybe you'll like that one.
Yeah, like we'll do another one in a year or two. So, we got a bunch of tours coming up. We're booked up basically till the end of the year. I'm sure we'll do some writing next year whenever we get some free time. Everybody's pretty busy these days. Just with like I moved. Matt's got a career, starting a second career. Eric's got a career, so we're all just busy boys right now.
I'm very much, like I said, looking forward to having you guys come back through, because like I said, I wasn't able to catch that Acacia Strain run. I was in, where the fuck was I think that's actually when I was in Nashville. I come to think of it.
Yeah.
So I was there.
This will be a good one. This is going to be a really, really fun tour. All the bands are good, like big stage. We're all friends, so it's going to be fun.
Well, hopefully, I'll pros this. I don't think I've seen anything about whether you drink or not, but if you're around and are able to, love to go have lunch or a coffee or something. There's a coffee shop or Founders right down the road.
Yeah, and, hit me up when we're in town, and I'll come with you. That'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Safe flights, safe travel back with your new van.
Thank you.
And
hopefully this one is better than the last.
We'll have to see it in a couple. I think it's 2 months, I think, or so.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, man. Thank you again.
Thanks. Good talking to you.
So that was my conversation with Issac Lamb, drummer for Kublai Kahn. Again, their newest record, Lowest Form of Animal. By the time you're hearing this, it already came out this past week. So if you have not, please go check it out, because it is absolutely crushing. A stellar release and a long line of stellar releases. But, it was kind of interesting, as I kind of was sort of alluding to in the beginning, talking about this viral moment that the band had, with the Kate Beckinsale, and a mutual friend, I guess, of the bands, or a fan of the bands, and a friend of Kate's, and blowing up on TikTok and so forth, or Instagram or whatever it was. But it's kind of weird, because we live in this world now where everyone kind of has been having these moments in the underground metal scene. One of the first ones I can really think of was Lorna Shore with To the Hellfire, like seeing Will's, vocal in that disgusting breakdown toward the end of it, just going absolutely apeshit on TikTok, and basically garnering a new audience really for Lorna Shore that maybe wasn't there, and kind of allowing them to capture this momentum of putting out a new song, a new EP, tours, and so forth. It's one of those where, we live in the world now where, everyone's trying to create a viral moment, which is absolutely fucking absurd because you can't create an organic viral moment. I guess you can try, but it is one of those where it's just kind of interesting to kind of be able to talk to someone who just literally went through it. And it's like, okay, so what happens? What is like, does the label start like pressuring you? Like, okay, guys, let's ramp some shit up. Let's announce, let's drop the video early. Let's, like what goes on behind the scenes, because it's still something so new to the industry and so new, especially to underground music, that it becomes this thing where how do you quantify going viral? Like, what is it like in the moment? What is the bigger picture when it happens? Does it change anything? Is it a tangible thing? Does going viral actually do anything for you? Or is it just hold on for a news cycle, a 24, 72 hour time, and then it's gone? It's not something that you can actually kind of bottle up and do anything with. And I think that's kind of the interesting part about it. And one of the first times I've really been able to talk to anyone who's gone through it, and to kind of hear, that basically it's kind of fleeting. And unless you happen to be having all these things rolling out at that time, there's not really a whole lot you can do with it. Other than just kind of ride the wave and see where it ends up. But it's one of those where I'm interested to see with this new record, with the moment kind of happening so quickly into the beginning of the rollout of this new album, if it'll keep the band in people's minds and ears long enough to correlate into some extra record sales or streams or whatever, and then potentially maybe even some better ticket sales when the band's touring. Those are the kind of things I think of and get excited about when you talk about all these new avenues for promotion, for new avenues for music to find people. I am pretty staunchly against TikTok. Like, I don't have it. Actually, I do. The podcast does have it. I put a couple of things on there, and I don't know what I'm doing with it, so it's probably never going to be used again. But it is one of those things where there's no doubt that it is something that is affecting how people intake music and probably generating some sort of revenue in some capacity for bands. But I don't know what that looks like. So forgive kind of the behind the scenes inside baseball talk on that, but it is something that I find fascinating as an almost 40-year-old person who has seen so many trends and different ways for people to take in music. And it is interesting. I think I made the comment in this chat or in some chat recently about how I was working with a bunch of kids literally that I'm 20 years older than, and they were listening to TikTok Serious. And I was like, why is that a channel? Like, these are songs that exist, and a lot of them are essentially what is top 40 radio. But it is weird to me that TikTok has become such a platform that it is now has its own station that people can listen to, so they can listen to the song that they hear already ad nauseum, even more ad nauseum. But that's just my old man, get off my lawn fucking mode coming out. I'm very much looking forward to catching Issac and Kublai Kahn on this upcoming tour and this run that they are doing. All that said, if you would like to keep up with Issac, well, he really only has Instagram. It's at Sweet Baby Ike. If you'd like to keep up with Kublai Kahn, you can find them at Kublai Kahn Tex Oma on Facebook. Instagram and Twitter are simply Kublai Kahn Texas, TX, not Texas spelled out all the way. If you'd like to keep up with the podcast, you can find it simply enough at BrewSpeak everywhere you are. If you can rate, review, subscribe, whatever, on any podcast app, YouTube, whatever, please leave comments, rate, review, subscribe. All of those things greatly help us. We do have a Patreon. I don't really plug it. For as little as $1, you get extra content. $3 gets you all the audio when I'm done with them, and like as soon as I'm done with it, boom, it gets uploaded. You get to hear it right away. This episode was out for I think about a month and a half before it's actually airing right now. And for $5, you can see the videos of me doing the interview with the person. Again, sometimes several months before you actually will see them or hear them. So if that sounds like something of value to you, please head on over to patreon.com/BrewSpeakPod, support the podcast. And speaking of support our sponsors, rockabilly.com, use our code BREWtally to take 10% off your total purchase order. Bean Bastard, go to thebeanbastard.com, pick up some delicious coffee. If you're in the Buffalo, New York area, please go to the brick and mortar, support that company, support that business. And last but not least, On Point Pomade. Keep your beard and hair looking on point. Use our code BSP15 at checkout and take 15% off your total purchase order. And for the Brewtally Speaking podcast, I am John, and I'm not going to tell you whose next week's episode is, so you'll just have to come back and find out. Till then.